Joined with our friend John Fontenot. He's the co-founder and chief product officer of Path2Product. John, welcome. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. And I just for our audience, I wanted to get a little bit kind of background. What led you to, found this Path2Product, and kind of, what got you started?
Yeah, so a lot of people in product management kind of have historically fallen into it. I think if you looked over, before 5 years ago, that's how most people got into the profession. I was kind of weird where, 2016, 2017, I was doing software partnerships for Intel and working with a lot of product people across software companies around the world, and kind of vicariously fell in love with what they did and said, okay, I love software partnerships, but I actually want to get into product management. And it took me probably 2 years of applying blindly, trying to get advice. And finally, some recruiter had pity on me and said, look, John, you're doing things wrong. You're trying to switch industries. You're going from a hardware company to trying to go into software. You're trying to switch from partnerships into product, and you can't do both at the same time. It's just not realistic. So it gave me some advice, and I was able to get into a SaaS company and get some mentorship and do some sales while I was there, just to kind of get my foot in the door of the right company, and then made an internal pivot into product. And about a week after I actually changed over to product management from that internal transfer, I had recruiters hitting my inbox in LinkedIn saying, hey, we think you'd be a good fit for this job. And I'm scratching my head saying, over the last 2 years, I've been working on my MBA, I've been building side products, and I've been getting all this experience doing certifications and classes. Like, I know I'm ready, but how am I more qualified today than I was a month ago when I was sending out these applications and getting rejected? And so that led me, with my product mindset, to start thinking, there's got to be a problem here that we can solve. And so it led me to this big research effort around why aspiring PMs aren't getting their shot. And it really just came down to experience. So it kind of formulated this hypothesis of, well, if we could figure out what are the common threads across product management, regardless of geography, industry, or role, and then we can take those common threads and we could put it into a teachable curriculum in a way that helps the students get hands-on experience. If we can make that resonate with hiring managers, then we can solve a real problem in the market.
Yeah, it's an interesting problem, right? In almost every industry is, we as business owners, we want to hire people with experience, but how do you get
Mhm.
experience if you can't get the job to begin with? So it sounds like a
Exactly.
really good solution. And especially in project management, where that bridging that gap between the client and the company, keeping the company's, core values and processes top of mind, but doing the right thing for the client at the same
Mhm.
time, it's critical.
Yeah, and it's an interesting beast to tackle too, right? Because you mentioned project management, and you can go to school for it now. You can get your PMP. There's marketing degrees to get into marketing. You can go do sales classes. So that there's usually paths that are function specific. But for product management, there might be like 2 or 3 universities that actually have a program around it. And there's tons of certification bodies, but most hiring managers that are directors or VP of products, they don't care about certifications, right? Because it's not the hands-on experience that you need to learn all the different variables that go into being a product manager and learning the right processes. So like, it's still very nascent in terms of like going from how do we set people up for success to get academically trained, get internships, or get some other form of experience like Path2Product, and then be able to make that seamless transition into the workforce.
So there's probably a lot of people in the audience, and I think I would count myself as one of them, that maybe we don't really know the difference between what product management
Mm.
is versus project management.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I've done a little bit of both. I've never been a full-time project manager, but I think in various aspects where I was working for kind of this outsourcing firm and building programs for them and managing projects and programs. Um, well, the way I would kind of crystallize it, and it's maybe debatable, which is fine, is that projects usually have like a defined scope with a start and end time. And programs, as opposed to projects, might last longer and have iterative cycles, which kind of mirror more like products in terms of a procedural process you might follow. But the difference is, like, programs are usually operationally based, human driven process where product management is focused on building a digital or hardware product, but some of the processes and procedures are similar in that sense. So I would kind of say projects are usually defined scope. You have a team, maybe it's a cross-functional team that comes together for a time to tackle a project. But once the project's over, you either were successful or you weren't. The project team disbands, and then there might be another project that comes up. Where in product, you have a dedicated team, usually that's working on a set of problems to try to meet a business objective through how we build the software to solve customer problems or create customer value.
Interesting. Okay, so that helps solidify the clarity. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no
Um,
problem.
so you mentioned a little bit that there's really only a handful or less traditional ways to kind of get into the product management career path. What makes
Mhm.
your platform different than those in particular? Are there things that really stand out that you've chosen to create to make that difference?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I've obviously looked into some of the academic paths. Like I think Harvard has a program, John Hopkins has a program. There's a few universities out there that do, and there's some companies that hire directly out of those programs. But these companies aren't hiring hundreds and thousands of product managers. It's more of like 10 or less a year at most that they're hiring out, and there's thousands upon thousands of aspiring PMs that are out there. So it's like, what do those people do when they don't have the luxury to be at this prestigious university, but they still want to get the job? And so what's different about it is I think some of the topics are probably similar, but what our program really does is it really cuts through the noise of all the things that product managers or aspiring product managers think they need to know, right? And I think that's the biggest gap when I was looking to get into product and as I coach aspiring PMs is there's so much stuff on the internet. There's frameworks and tools and processes, and do I need to know how to code or learn SQL? Like what's important, right? And going back to the research on the common threads, we've distilled down the most important aspects of product management, which at a high level is you have discovery and then you have delivery, right? So I'll break discovery down into market research, customer research, and design and solution validation. So that's kind of the discovery portion. And then delivery is how do you work with a dev team, a UX designer? How do you work with your cross-functional partners in marketing and sales? How do you keep your executives aligned? How do you get customer success ready for the launch? That's kind of the delivery part of like, how do we do company and sales enablement? And then how do we make sure that we're organizationally aligned so we're successful, right? So we take those two buckets and break them down into subtopics of like, what are the most important things you need to learn and be able to do in discovery? And what are the most important things you need to be able to learn and do in delivery? And then how do we, through a digital platform, give them an augmented experience or as close to real simulation as possible? And that's kind of where the magic happens.
It sounds like you have to be a real people person to be able to speak kind of different languages, if you will, not necessarily coding languages, but if you've got to be able to speak to all these different departments and kind of be that central hub, it's got to be, you know, difficult, I would imagine.
Absolutely. And I think that's a part of the challenge and kind of the high bar of getting into the role, right? Is it's not, even though you have maybe entry level product manager roles, it's not an entry level role, right? It's not like you're doing entry level sales or data entry or something where coming out of school, you can kind of get your feet wet and learn how to work as a team or work with other people in a company. It's like some of these things have to be there and you don't have to know all of it, but if as long as you have a base, whether it's you're stronger with business acumen or you're stronger working with customers or you have a technical competency, if you have one or two of those three things, making that transition's easier. And what Path to Product tries to do is say, look, if you're coming out of school or you're trying to switch from another career into product management, let's help you make sure that you have a full well-rounded set of skills to be able to tackle this from the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I noticed that you guys offer a full certification, and I'm
Mhm.
wondering, how have you positioned that certification as an industry leading certification? You know, like how does a company that sees an applicant that has the certification, how do they know that number one, that's legitimate, and that two, it actually means something? I mean, you guys put a lot of time and effort. The applicant has put a lot of time and effort in getting the
Mhm.
certification. How do you convey that to a company?
It's a good question, and I think the dirty little secret we have is that we don't care as much about the certification. Because of the research,
Ah,
there's so many other companies that focus on the certification, but again, hiring managers, if you do a survey, 95% will say, "We don't care." And so
ah,
what we focus on, we do have a certificate that you can get at the end, but there's other ways that we're looking to build credibility, right? We've already established some university partnerships. We're working with other um, training platforms for product managers who kind of have complementary services to us. So there's kind of industry partnerships and relationships that we're working through to build that credibility, bringing on other product leaders from big brand companies or who have strong reputations in the field to be kind of mentors or help lead some of the live cohorts that we have. And so it's really kind of more of a community led um, reputation management for our NPR for our company. But where the magic is really is in the portfolio projects. So I mentioned that there's hands-on assignments, and each assignment they do through each of the modules, as they're completing those, it gets kind of ported into a portfolio project that looks really nice. They could show it off. It's optimized for SEO. So if somebody's searching their name, it pops up and they can see what their work is and their experience. And really, that's the piece in their portfolio, what they put on their LinkedIn. There's a whole bunch of like hacky career things that we help our students learn how to do to get more clicks on LinkedIn, to get more application views, to really show the experience that they have in ways that may be non-traditional, but helps them get their shot.
right. Okay. So it is more about like showing companies I have the experience you need, not the degree or the certification or anything like that. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
I in my hiring years, I've often said I'll take someone with experience over someone with a degree, 99 times out of 100 because they can just plug and play for the most part.
Yep, absolutely. And you're not alone. I mean, I think like in all my research, and I think most hiring managers would say this, and especially on the recruiting side, right? I'll give you an analogy. Back 20, 30 years ago, I don't, not great with timelines, but the expression was nobody gets fired for hiring IBM or buying IBM. I think now it's like no one gets fired for hiring Salesforce. Both of those products probably aren't the best products, but they're the industry leaders and they're the safe choice. And that's what experience is in a hiring decision. It's the safe choice. But what people don't tell you is that somebody had to give them their first shot. And what's actually validating that they were good for the 5, 10 years that they were doing the job, right? How many leaders that there actually hold performance accountable in a day to day? And I've seen this play out so many times where you have kind of subpar performance, but now you have 5 years of experience, so you're getting a senior level role. So at some point, eventually stuff hits the fan and you get let go because somebody has the guts to tell you weren't doing very good. But we have tons of that across the industry. So it's like, how do we actually put the proof in the pudding and show that this person has the skills? And so there's kind of a long-term vision around not just aspiring PMs, but how do existing PMs show through some type of portfolio that they are at the top of their game, right? And it's not just the logo on their resume getting them the job or the years of experience getting them the job. Because this is what's going to happen, right? We have Gen AI taking over everything. It's the most impactful thing since software ate the world, so to speak. And a lot of companies are saying, oh man, how can I cut cost? Can I have a single person do product management, research, design? And yes, they have tools to make them more efficient now, but because now they're so spread thin, the work is going to stay surface level. Hiring is going to decrease because we think Gen AI can do everything for us. We can automate away everything. And once there's a realization that we've automated all the entry level stuff, so to speak, and now we just have these super experienced people, now we have a talent gap where these super experienced product managers are starting their own companies, or they're becoming course creators or content creators or podcasters or consultants. And now what do? All the experienced PMs are retired. They're not here with us anymore, or they're doing other things. What do we do now? And there needs to be a solution industry wide that's training that next generation of product managers so we don't have to start from scratch.
You bring up a good point with AI. I mean, what a time to be alive, right? I mean, AI is
Absolutely.
potentially the most impactful change in human history potentially, and we're here to witness it. But how do you incorporate AI into your kind of platform? And are you training people how to use AI? Are you using AI to just train them in being a product manager, or both?
Yeah, the timing of that question is interesting because we're working on a relaunch of the next version of the platform where, because like you said, Gen AI is kind of an expectation now. It's the new level of skill set of how do we become more efficient? How do we use these tools to become better? How do we do more with less, which is, I think, every business leader's goal right now. And so, yeah, so the next version of the product, which is coming out probably early September, there's going to be a new curriculum, new assignments, and it's all about, okay, here's kind of the analog way you could continue doing what we have been doing as PMs, but how do we leverage some of these Gen AI tools to do market research, customer research? How do we get decent proxy data when we're building brand new products from scratch and we don't have existing customers to go talk to or get data from? How do we analyze data more quickly? How do we instead of having to go learn SQL, what if we could just like use Gen AI to run through the data for us and answer the questions that we have, so we don't have to like it it kind of democratizes access, but you have to know how to use the tools to be able to get the insights from them. And so that's what the new curriculum is going to teach. At each of those steps through discovery and delivery, how do we become faster and better? And how do we use Gen AI as thought partners and assistants through that process? So yes, we're definitely all over that and pretty excited about how that's going to help students complete their projects on the platform and become even more prepared to take on their first role.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing. It seems like AI evolves every 5 minutes. There's something new that has come out in some AI model, and so if you're showing potential product managers how to implement AI and use it as a tool in their tool belt, are you doing things like prompt engineering and showing them how to prompt AI, or is it something different?
It's definitely part of it. We don't do a deep dive on prompt engineering. The future of Path to Product is actually going to be kind of a library of courses where right now we kind of have the flagship program to help you get experience. But there's going to be some add-ons where we have some different experience courses to go build 0 to 1 products, build products with AI, build products with no code tools, and then kind of a library of more theory and learning so that we can get kind of deep dives in certain areas of go to market, prompt engineering, SQL, and some of the things that kind of help you improve and gain more skills. But yeah, that's all stuff that we're thinking through. But for the flagship program, there will be some prompt engineering around how do you ask good questions of the AI to get really good answers back, and how do you kind of work with the AI back and forth to kind of optimize and maximize the potential of what that tool can do for you.
Yeah. And what a tool it is. And by the time you launch in September, things will have changed. And so I'm sure that what we're talking about now may be a little bit different, but that's kind of the
For
beauty
sure.
of it at the same time, right? Is that it can adapt and change very rapidly.
Absolutely. And you know, the benefit of being kind of a non-academic institution for now, who knows what the future holds, but in academia, you know, curriculum cycles are 3 to 5 years, if not more. And we could iterate a lot faster. So we'll always be ahead of what that very expensive degree program would be. So you might be 3 months behind, 6 months behind, but you're going to be pretty close to up to date with where the rest of the market is.
And how do you do that? Like, you're talking about this release coming out in September. Are you concerned about it being perfect when you launch it? Or is it more like, here's the vision, let's get it out there and then we'll adapt as we go?
Definitely the latter. I think with any product, whether it's strictly software, if it's a hybrid between this kind of like learning content with a software experience that's kind of powering it, nothing's going to be perfect, and it's going to need to be iterated. And what's good about it is there's like a cohort of individuals who've either been through previous versions of the program and are graduates, or they're industry leaders who I'm connected with who kind of give feedback as I go. So whether it's, you know, writing books or building curriculum, I'm always trying to get that iterative feedback as I'm producing versus kind of that old waterfall method where you build the whole thing over a course of a year, you ship it and pray that it works, right?
Right.
We can be a lot more iterative today.
And then be upset when people find holes in it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We got to patch this, and yeah.
What if you're comfortable sharing it, what are some of the biggest challenges you've faced and like maybe some pitfalls that you've stepped in that other people could learn from?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you have what you think is a great idea in terms of building a product and building a business, there's a lot of optimism. Obviously, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to be optimistic. But I think being humble enough to identify like what your assumptions are, and even if you've done research, like these are things that we should watch out for, so you could test against them, measure them, because you don't want to get caught in this loop where like you're testing forever, right? You have to ship at some point, and so like practically the biggest challenge for us has been getting students to complete the program, and it's a double-edged sword because you want to make it to where they can complete the program, but you can't water it down so much that you take away the rigor of that highly simulated experience, because product management is not easy and there's a lot of things you have to do to be able to do it well. And so striking that balance of making it um, easy enough to complete, but difficult enough to give them the right level of experience and understanding of, is this even the right path for me? Right. Um,
Yeah.
that's been kind of the biggest hurdle for us. But I think going back to the Gen AI part, I think there's some really exciting things that Gen AI can do to help remove some of the points of friction that we've seen as the biggest points and help the students complete their projects at a higher rate. So we're pretty excited about that.
How did you overcome that? I mean, how did you figure out that these were some of the pitfalls and then how did you overcome them? Like what was the methodology behind kind of getting around that?
Yeah, so eating my own dog food on the process of building products, right?
Okay.
Is there's not only the upfront research, but the feedback loop that you're getting as people go through it. So there's data instrumentation that you can put into your product to see how far are people getting, when are they falling off, following up to get feedback, building in automated feedback loops into the product where they can give feedback as they're going. One of the new things that we're doing, which I think is going to be helpful, both from a project completion standpoint and a qualitative feedback standpoint, is at the end of each module, we're having myself or another coach on the platform have a coaching session. So they finish a module, they finish their assignments. We're going to coach them. We're going to give them feedback on their projects. We're going to get feedback from them on their experience. So that's kind of the manual way we're going to do it. But we also have tools that do like session replay, so we can go back and see how are people progressing, what's their experience in the product, as well as some of the quantitative data around how they're using the platform to kind of triangulate how we improve as we go.
Got it. And earlier you mentioned, I believe you were used the word cohort, which I love.
Mhm.
I have a degree in psychology, and so we deal with a lot of cohorts there. But is there a lot of collaboration between the students, if you will? Do they have within your platform a means to communicate with each other, solve problems together?
It's a great question. And we've been asked that a few times, but not yet. So one of the plans that we have for the long term is not just to have more collaboration on platform within the students, but we are working on that in the short term, both with the mentor relationships, peer reviews, things where you can be more of a community, and you don't feel like you're going through this alone. So I know I mentioned the weekly coaching sessions after you finish a module, the mentors, the peer reviews, but what we would love to do, and the thing that our platform doesn't do well today, is simulate that relationship between the PM, the UX designer, and the developers, right? Which is kind of that core relationship in the product management team. And so we're looking at doing partnerships with like boot camps, because a lot of boot camps have the developers and the UX designer, but they don't have the PM. So they're missing the experience of working with the PM, and somebody's having to play that role. So how do we bring those boot camps together with our program and give them a holistic experience? So that's kind of an exciting future for Path to Product.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that roadmap come to fruition. It's one of the things that I've found with online learning is that you feel so isolated, and having that community, as you're talking about, can be a real boost to, you know, just your success rates in general, I think, and then overall adoption of the program.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. One of the other things that I did want to touch on a little bit more about AI is how do you see long term AI affecting your platform?
It's a good question. There's a bunch of unknown unknowns in that potential answer. But in general, I think there's some opportunity to bring on whether it's content that we're creating as like supplemental content for learning, whether it's the podcast that I run, interviewing tons of product people all over the world. I think there's an interesting opportunity to train kind of a digital mentor where you have all this content, students can ask questions, and I don't have to be there in person all the time, or their mentor or one of the coaches, and they can get answers right on the spot. So as they're working through a problem, you could go to ChatGPT, you can go to Perplexity, but if you had something in the platform where you don't have to navigate away and you have something that's more tailored, because frankly, like not all product content's created the same, and we have a very particular set of philosophies around how products should be done versus maybe how it's being done in some areas. And I want our students to make sure that we're framing the product discipline in such a way that it becomes a true discipline, like a marketing or a sales or a finance. Um, it's this debate of like art versus science, and I think there's going to be a bit of both. But where you should be scientific, or where you should have certain mental models about how to approach situations, I want them to make sure they're getting good training. So how do we make sure that we have kind of a co-pilot or an assistant for them, leveraging a lot of the data that we're already accumulating?
Yeah, that's AI agents right now are hugely popular, and training an agent um, is critical with the proper information, right? Not just relying on what
Yep.
ChatGPT already knows, but what you know and what
Mhm.
you're able to bring to the table, and kind of have your own AI avatar, if you will. What about things like AI voice? Are you
Mm.
looking at bringing in where people could talk to, or use AI voice capabilities?
Not yet. I mean, I think there's a future potential for like AI mock interviews,
Mhm.
which you can do that in like a chat-based format, but it becomes more, I think, realistic whenever you can have like an AI avatar that you're talking to, where it looks like you and I are talking right now, and you can have somebody asking you questions, and then unlike a real interview setting, you actually get feedback at the end to know how to improve. I think that could be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. How many times do we, as people in the workforce, leave an interview and really have no idea? Somebody says, "How did it go at the interview?" I think I crushed it. How do you know that? I mean, you feel good about the answers you gave, but how was it received? I think that would be a really good, feature to add, is that feedback
Yeah.
loop.
And then what was good and what wasn't good, and what could you improve next time? Like, I
Yeah.
think there's layers to that, where if you train a model correctly, you can get some really insightful coaching there, and be able to continually practice in a way that's um, you could do mock interviews with a variety of people who are in the industry, but if you have something that's well trained and based on a lot of aggregated data, you don't get kind of the one-off biased feedback from a company that does something one certain way. You get more holistic, well-rounded feedback, which I think would be useful.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, how do you find people into your program, or do you rely on them finding you?
It's interesting. So it was very scrappy in the early days. I did what we would call a concierge MVP, where you're doing things very hands-on. I had like a set of slides, and I was meeting with students like once a week, kind of manually teaching them, just to kind of learn if there was appetite, if they were getting it, if they were doing their projects well. And that kind of scrappy method, just going into Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups and saying, "Hey, I'm putting together a program to help aspiring PMs get into product. Anybody interested?" And I did it for free at first, just to get feedback and see if it would work. And it's evolved a lot over time, but a lot of it's been organic, right? I haven't done any paid advertising. I've done some blog posts. I do social media posts. Some of it's word of mouth. I get a lot of people signing up and reaching out saying, "Hey, my buddy told me about this program." But we're really looking to take that to the next level with our partnerships, right? Um, there's a the first version or first iteration of a partnership with Utah Valley University, one of the largest universities here in Utah. That's going to be coming this fall. I mentioned there's another partnership coming with another training platform that helps product managers get the right level of technical competency without having to learn how to code. There's an announced partnership coming up probably in a couple months there. So there's going to be more stuff where from the university level to helping with partnerships that'll help drive visibility and awareness to existing career professionals looking to make a switch. That's all going to just put, gasoline on the fire, I think. But we've had over the, I think 3 years, we've had 1,200 people sign up for the platform. We've had probably 20 plus students land jobs, and kind of going back to like that ratio, right? It's like, oh, 1,200 people signed up, a much smaller percentage actually finished, but the percentage of people that finished that landed jobs is in like the 80 plus percentile. So we just need to figure out that one part about helping more people complete the program, and I think we could have a much bigger impact on the market.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always it's an interesting thing. There's a saying in construction: what gets measured gets managed, right? And if you
Yep.
don't have the metrics, how do you know what to change? So it's encouraging to hear that you guys are taking all this data and actually looking at it and using it to improve, because so many companies just don't. They're out there just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing if something sticks and then moving on to the next, wet towel they throw against the wall.
I agree with you. But for credibility's sake, I hope I'm doing the things that I'm teaching my students that they should be doing, right? Yeah.
Right, right. So if people are interested in getting a hold of you for a myriad of reasons, I mean, you've got so much good stuff going on. What are the ways that you want them to reach out?
I'm really active on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm on Instagram, X, and I'm kind of omni-channel for Path to Products purposes. But yeah, find me on LinkedIn. Get me on email, john@path2product.io. Would love to chat, and whether it's for a potential partnership or you're looking to say how can I bring experienced PMs that are kind of more entry level into my organization, whatever that may look like, reach out to me. I'd love to chat.
And you mentioned you have a podcast too. You want to throw a quick plug for that?
Sure. So, Lessons in Product Management is my podcast. I've been running it for about 5 years. Got about 5,000 subscribers across the world in product circles, mostly product leadership, but a lot of my aspiring PMs reference the content quite a bit. So,
Mhm.
yeah, it's been fun.
Very cool. Well, John, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. I love what you're doing. I can't wait to see what comes out in September. I want to keep following it and see where this goes for you.
Thanks, Dad. No, I appreciate it. I'll definitely keep you posted, and I'll share links whenever everything's out and ready.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. And for those of you out there, thanks for watching. This has been the Ready Fire Aim podcast, hosted by the Nexus Connect Podcast Network.